It's Corso and Catone. Brought to you by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Now for the real deal New England feel, Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe's with us in the booth. You are watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, anywhere you podcast, 790 The Score. And Joe's scrolling that thing along the bottom there. Heated hotline. Give us a call. 855-313-PATS, P-A-T-S, message line, 24/7. Have a take. Joe may pick one.
He might.
See. Let it be yours. Or you can email us.
What kind of mood he's in.
Right. Or you can email us in our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com. Got a good one. Not too many segments, but a lot to talk about in Weekly Rewind. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl. Hey, everybody's happy. Fly, Eagles, fly. Yeah. And, of course, we'll hear from Catone's comments. You don't want to miss that. And we'll go B's and C's as they get to the breaks, their collective breaks. And, you know, I'm playing hurt today.
Yeah, you don't sound too good.
I got my tissues in this colorful looking box. I got my water. I'm ready. Got to fight. Fight through, man. Got to play hurt.
That's right, buddy.
Yeah, play hurt. Yeah, take
How
him
you
to
guys
the blue tent. Take him to the blue tent.
Yeah, hit the blue tent up. Let's get in there. Shoot them up. Get back on the field. That's it.
Get on the field. That's it.
How you guys doing? Okay. How we doing?
Hey.
Yeah, doing all right. Hey, we're happier than we would have been if there was a three-peat on the table. That's for damn sure.
That's for damn sure.
I couldn't take any more of that goat talk.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about it, and we're going to do it in Weekly Rewind, and we're going to do it now. Going back through the week, about a Weekly Rewind. Okay, guys, 40-22, Philadelphia kicked the living crap out of the Kansas City Chiefs. Let me say it again because it sounds so good. Philadelphia beat the living crap out of them. At one point, it was like 34-0.
The game, it really wasn't even that close, 40-22, Chris. They scored a couple of touchdowns against backups. They were putting guys in just to say they were on the field in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Mahomes threw three touchdowns, but that's garbage time stuff.
That's garbage time. Yep.
This game could have been 50.
Oh, it should. Yeah. Couple of better throws or better, connections by Hurts, it would have been probably 50 or more. They would have scored.
So what is your I want to get to the breakdown in the first half of this Weekly Rewind of the game so we can break down what happened. But your guys' take on just, briefly, what'd you think of the game all around? I know Joe's going to talk about, people that I don't even know who they are at the halftime show, but how about you?
I didn't even bother because I didn't know all of them. I knew some of the songs, but I was like, yeah, okay, I can't.
I thought they were going to have Barry Manilow.
Hey.
Copacabana.
Joe, get in. There's something wrong with it. Get in something.
Too much
what
medication.
What are you taking? Too much cold medication.
Yeah, seriously.
That really? Dayquil's a good thing, let me tell you. No, Mark, what'd you think of the game? Seriously.
Can I be honest, Chris? It played out exactly how you and I said it would last week. I mean, if anybody listened to us last week on CORSO CATONE and even on PATS Nation, we went into even more detail. If anybody listened to us, everything we said would probably happen and why it would happen, happened, right? As far as pass rush, you talked about defense on Kelsey. You talked about what the secondary would probably do. Everything we discussed, Chris, happened. They got dominated. We were afraid to say it because we jinx ourselves all the time. However, we were right.
Well, for people out there that don't believe us, let's go back a little bit, Joe.
I think one of the big keys in this game is going to be the fact that I think Philadelphia's defense can get pressure with that defensive line.
Yeah.
Okay? 4 guys. They're not going to have to blitz. They're not going to have to do anything exotic. they're going to get pressure with 4 guys, and they're going to force Mahomes to have to. They're going to flood the zone on Mahomes. They're going to have drop 7 guys back, just like Tampa did the year Tampa beat them. Shaq Barrett was in the backfield the entire game. Every so often they blitzed in that game, but they flooded the zone. Mahomes had nobody to throw to, and they had a much better receiving core then than they do now, Kansas City.
Yeah. That, of course, was Mr. Catone right here. We were talking about that. That was leading up to the Super Bowl and our predictions and thoughts. And Mark, I mean, it's how it played out. I don't know why people you couldn't see that coming in. People, I mean, the hell are you people looking at out there?
We're gonna have to change the name of the show to CORSO Catone. We told you so.
Yeah,
right.
Well, Chris, you even said
soothsayers.
You said, Mark, Vegas is playing games because Philly should be minimum 3-4 point favorites, minimum. They're trying to get you to go the other way with Kansas City because this game's going to be a blowout if you look at the 2 rosters. You said it.
Well, we got audio on that too. But talk about that front because, now that you mentioned it before and we talked about that. Yeah, I mean, played out the way we thought it would. And goddamn, they were something else up front.
Oh,
if you could give the MVP to a front 4, they deserved it. But what'd you see them doing specifically? They hit. By the way, they hit them like 16 times.
Chris, they did a few stunts. They did they were stunting a little bit with their outside guys and their inside guys. They were doing some inside rushes, but for the most part, Chris, they beat them because they were so much faster. The tackles, even Tooney, the tackles were looking up, Chris, and Sweat and the guy on the other side. They were by him. They couldn't handle him. They went way by him. So it wasn't even like the middle of the guys were just bull rushing right through. There was nothing Kansas City could do to prevent it. They keep a running back in. It didn't matter. Running back would run right over or couldn't chip. Kelsey's an embarrassment of a blocker, Chris. You go back and look at the video of that game. A couple of times they left him in to try to chip. The guy ran right by him. Right by him, he ran.
Yeah, and I don't think they did enough of the chipping or anything like that. It was strange to me because we talked about coming in Andy Reid, and with him it's
Sweat and Nolan Smith, Chris, ran right by those guys on the edges.
Tooney, everybody was giving Tooney props. Oh, look at how he's playing. He's moving him over the tackle. He can do anything. All this stuff. When you and I saw that happen, where they were moving him from guard to tackle, and this wasn't the first game though, right? That he was doing.
No, he's been doing that, Chris, for about 4 or 5 weeks. That
right.
Left tackle got hurt,
and everybody was giving him props for it. And you and I both said it, like he's not going to be able to hold up against those ends. And and later on in the show, we talk a little bit. And tomorrow on the Pats Nation, we're talking about maybe bringing Sweat in, going to sign that guy. But yeah, I mean, again, not a lot. They didn't do a lot. Even twists, stunts, little loops, not a ton. But I tell you what they did that front is they contained him. They kept Mahomes in that pocket. Like we talked about, that was going to be a key. And what was beautiful about the pass rush that I haven't heard this week is they didn't do what I said you can't do. You can't get upfield and play and rush behind Mahomes and get too far upfield and let them scoot out those C gap lanes to the sideline. They did a great job of taking 90-degree angles at Mahomes.
They did.
And just keeping him there. And there was nothing he could do. There was nothing he could do. Although he had a horrible game, though, Mahomes. And then, so, again, I'm not surprised. I know the world was surprised to see what we saw.
And Chris, at one point, it was like he started seeing like shadows because he had some check downs, Chris. He didn't even wait long enough for the check downs. He just panicked. He started panicking.
Yeah. And then when it came to Kelsey, I mean, the first order of business, we said that guy's going to get taken out of the game, just completely out of the game. And we talked about that, didn't we, Joe?
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Kelsey, you and I talked about this. Philly's got good enough linebackers where you could play zone over and you can just play man on Kelsey all day long with a linebacker so he doesn't drift into those holes.
Yeah.
Now,
Talk about the job. Talk about the job that Braun did.
He was all over. Chris, that's exactly what you described as what Ron did. He was the guy who was manning him up. Wherever he was, wherever he went, he was with them. And they specifically did what San Fran did last year until Greenlaw got hurt with his Achilles. That Philly just did what they did. And it was working last year, but, and he got hurt. But this year, Chris, and then when he didn't do it, there were a couple of times Cooper DeJean picked him up, who he played an incredible game. But they just had Kelsey on lockdown, Chris. Another one. He caught a couple of balls in garbage time, right? It was meaningless. Didn't mean anything. And he caught a couple of balls. He was clearly frustrated, Chris. By the third quarter, if you looked at him out there, he basically, he's a, you know what? I don't even want to tell you what I really want to say about him because I'll take us off the air. But he gave up, Chris. He gave up. You watch him. He was running half speed on routes. Like he gave up on his team in that game because he knew that he had nothing left in the tank against those guys, and they were getting their face kicked in. And Andy Reid was walking up and down the sideline like a walrus. He didn't know he was a fish out of water. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. Andy Reid. We said Sirianni might wet himself. We were wrong with that though, Chris, because it was Andy Reid who wet himself. He didn't know what to do.
Yeah, you're right. And we saw that right at the beginning of the game. You saw Reid just his eyes were wide open. He was trying to calm his team down on the sideline. And I said it before, without Reid on his game, Mahomes is not lifting that team up.
Nope, and he didn't.
He's not. He's not going to pick it up, get on the field, and calm things down. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't get it done. Couldn't get him out of check. Couldn't check out of things and do it on his own like somebody else we know. And we're going to talk about that later on in the show. But we were not surprised that this was a blowout at all. And let's go back again and hear from us.
Oh, outside of Mahomes, I get Mahomes. Obviously, he's the difference maker. He's the reason why they win these Super Bowls, right? But outside of Mahomes, I think Philly's got the advantage on offense, and Philly's got the advantage overall on defense.
Top to bottom, they're a better team. Now we'll see. We'll see. So it's a point and a half, Mark. But what did we say the other night about that point? I think Vegas is trying to dupe everybody right now.
You think they want you to take Kansas City in this game?
Oh yeah, they see it.
Chris, you said Philly should, at the very least, minimum, be a field goal favorite in this game. Minimum.
I believe. I mean, look, this is a team that's going to score over 30 regularly. Kansas City did it once, and that was because of the short field, like you talked about. So Kansas City scored what, 32 points the week?
32 points.
So
32.
So Vegas knows what they're doing. They're trying to get everyone to dump money on Kansas City.
Absolutely. Didn't work. Didn't work for us anyway.
Didn't work for us, but
no, I couldn't.
Seventh in the league with scoring, and Kansas City was like 13th or something like that with point scoring.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if Philly was that far down. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, Joe.
But I know that when we went over the yards in the previous games that Philly had, they were up in the 350, 400, and sure enough, in this game, they were at just about 350 yards. And we said about that game against Houston where Mahomes and company was 212 yards total offense. That's who they are. And in this game, it was 275. But that 75 yards,
Chris, they were under 200. They were under 200 yards until garbage time.
Right. And they were at 30, 40 yards in the first half?
Yeah.
This game was over by the half. This game was over at the half.
Listen, everybody kept saying, and even, Brady, who did the broadcast, and he loved it in the second half of that game, right? Yeah. But even Brady, to try to keep you interested in watching the game, kept saying, it's Mahomes, they can come back. And I think, the guy that was doing the reference to the Atlanta game, when we came back, but there was a big difference, Chris. If you looked at the stats in the first half of that game against Atlanta, Brady threw for over 100 yards. Like, we were missing some plays. There were some things we were doing wrong that if we cleaned it up, you knew we'd be able to score against Atlanta. Kansas City was dominated in the first half. Totally dominated.
Absolutely. Yes, they were. And so, again, I wasn't surprised. I'm not sure why the hell anybody would be surprised. It didn't make any sense. I mean, they were a better football team, like we said, top to bottom. They were better. And we're going to break down more of that tomorrow on the Pats Nation.
Chris, were you surprised that Andy Reid couldn't make any adjustments? I mean, they go in for the half, Chris. They get the ball to start the second half. They got the long halftime, and you're like, well, you know what? If he makes a few adjustments and they come out and score a touchdown right out of the gate, maybe they got a shot. Maybe. He had no answer, Chris. He didn't know what to do. Were you surprised at that?
A little bit, because, because what I saw, there were some things that could be done. They were getting to him with 4. We said that. That's fine. But when that's happening, I didn't see them go to the edge enough. I didn't see a lot of bubble screens. I didn't see a lot of step backs. I didn't see a lot of 4x1 to force Philadelphia to get into an unbalanced side, an unbalanced defense on one side or the other. And that would have forced a little bit of the heat, take off the heat a little bit on Mahomes. And I don't think they moved them out of the pocket enough, either. And so I thought Mahomes did a poor job of setting protection, of not seeing things. And when we come back, we're going to talk just about that. We're going to talk about Mahomes, Brady, what this means for the Patriots. So, but this portion of Weekly Rewind was presented by the Pats Nation. Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Tune in tomorrow because we're going to have a lot more detail on this game and so much more. But when we come back, going to continue a Weekly Rewind. No flipping.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. All right, Mark, before we get to that New England take on this, we didn't really talk about Philadelphia's offense and what they were able to do. So, I thought it was a thing of beauty, and it kind of went the way you said it may go. You had talked about, well, does Philly come out and spread the ball out a little bit, throw the ball more, get those guys involved? Now, I don't think they planned on that. I think they planned on doing what brought them there, but Kansas City loaded the box.
Yeah, we had talked about, Chris, if Kansas City loads the blocks, run blitzes, they brought Tranquil up a bunch of times, and he did a good job of getting in the backfield on Barkley. But we said if that happens, this isn't, this isn't Houston. This isn't Buffalo, whose receivers average. This team's got weapons. They had the tight end. They got A.J. Brown. They got Devontae Smith. They'll throw the ball and they'll beat you. And you said there's no way McDuffie is gonna be able to play one-on-one A.J. Brown, which you couldn't. So they did what we said, Chris. Okay, if you're going to stack the box and run blitz and try to stop Barkley, they're going to go over the top. They're going to beat you because they got the receivers to do it. And that's exactly what they did, just like we said they would do.
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute there. I'm going to go into these coughing spells, so I'm going to hit the mute button. If they really wanted to, Mark, they could have scored a lot more points. They could have put the pressure on. They could have put their foot on the pedal because Goddard would have been open all day long in the middle of that field.
Yeah.
All day long. And Spagnuolo was another one with deer and headlights on the sidelines. And we kept talking about that. He's great. He's a great DC. I'm not going to take it away from him. But it seems to me that KC has become a one-trick pony, so to speak.
They blitzed. Chris, they blitzed.
They bring them from different places. Like Romo said, it's exotic, which I don't think it is.
That was a bunch of crap that game.
Right. And we talked about that. If you're going to bring heat against this team, God forbid you have to go one-on-one on the outside. Like you said, McDuffie can't handle it. They can't do it. And you saw it. And every time they brought heat, the offensive line, which is the best in football, picked it up. Yeah. Hurts moved around and delivered the ball calmly.
When they got inside the red zone, Chris, when they had to kick a field goal, I think it was when they threw the wheel route up the sideline to Barkley, and Barkley got tackled at like the 3-yard line. And you said, Mark, 4-yard line. You said, Mark, play action here. They'll score immediately. Yeah. And they didn't play action. But they did play action after that from like the 40, and he hit Devontae Smith down the center of the field. Then that was play action, which you said, Mark, if they play action against this team because they're trying to stop the run, they're going to light this team up. And the only thing I would say Philly could have did more, Chris, is I think you're right. They would have lit them up with a little bit more play action too.
Yeah, they could have. That's what I'm saying. I think there was a lot more that could have been done. I mean, if Philly really wanted to, they could have scored a lot more points in this game and for doing some of this stuff. But I thought Kellen Moore had who's now the Saints head coach. I thought he had a great game.
He did.
But if you look at it, we've been saying this all along. And now let's get into the whole New England, Kansas City thing. Okay? Because we've been saying it all season long. I don't understand why teams can't beat this Kansas City team. I don't understand why the AFC can't beat them. I mean, they were exposed. This team was exposed in this game.
They were
for what
exposed,
they really
Chris.
are.
They were, but a lot of teams don't have, obviously, what Philadelphia has. They can't get pressure with 4, right? And typically, if you blitz Mahomes, he picks you apart. But there's other ways to confuse Mahomes, Chris. Belichick did it, and he didn't do it just rushing 4. No. You know, there's ways to do it, and these teams they don't do it.
No. These double mug looks and, force Mahomes to – what happened with the Patriots when they would play him is because you would have those zero look, double mug, whatever. Mahomes was forced to look down instead of look out and up at the field. And that's what happened in this game. He was looking down the whole time. And at that point, it was over. You weren't coming back from that. And Reed had no answer. So
because to your point, Chris, it's not Mahomes stepping to the line and making the decisions. It's what Reed's feeding him. And yes, he goes off script and he makes plays. I get that. But if he can't make a play off script, Chris, he's gonna understand at the line of scrimmage what's going on. And he was totally discombobulated, rattled, and confused. And he didn't have a counterpunch, Chris. He had nothing.
And you know who else? Who else thinks the same way when you're talking what quarterbacks could do that coming up to the line of scrimmage? And Brady versus. Let's hear from the GOAT.
When Brady came to the line and when he had a play, his feeling was every play is designed to succeed.
That the wrong one.
Last Super Bowl I was a part of.
There you go.
I was 2 weeks of watching film. Friday night, I was just going through the film more. I knew Kansas City's defense better than they knew themselves. I knew their body movements, the way their linebackers moved, the way their safeties moved. Tyrann Mathieu, Nick Sorensen, Charvarius Ward. I knew everything they were doing. I got out there on the field. I looked up as I was walking line of scrimmage and said, okay, they're blitzing. And then I was dealing with it right away. I walked up. I said, okay, they're going to bail to cover 2. Ball snap, cover 2. And I knew I had the answers to the test. That's where I was great. That's where my magic superpower was. It wasn't how fast I could run. It was how fast I could diagnose what they were doing.
He's, not short on confidence.
No. But Chris, where did he learn that? Who taught him that?
To what?
To have the answers to the test.
He learned it from me.
Oh, he learned it from
you.
I
mean, look at it.
That's what Belichick taught him.
It is. Yeah, it's a lot of film study. It's just a lot of dedication that other guys just won't do. So a few weeks ago when I said, Mahomes is not the GOAT, he'll never be the GOAT. That's what I was talking about. Joe, I don't know if you have that audio. We can play it whenever you're ready. But, Mahomes, the GOAT, no way. I mean, this is the shorts we put up. And by the way, watch those shorts on YouTube and make sure you subscribe and give us that thumbs up. Hit that little bell so you get all those notifications. But, Joe, play that when you're ready.
Mahomes will be the GOAT next Sunday night. He can do things Brady could only dream about doing on a football field. This is the funny one. By the way, go Giants.
Joe, I hate you that's reading that.
Okay. I was like, when I saw this one, I was like, oh yeah.
You know what?
That's going in today.
You know what, Paul?
You better take a pill
something for this, but screw you, Paul. You know what? F the eggs next time.
Is that how we sound?
It's hotline, okay? Instead of writing it down, hiding behind your computer with a friggin' email like that. Okay, let's talk about it.
Oh, God.
Down. Address Paul's stupidity and nonsense.
I wanted you to play the Brady's brain, but he had to stick that in there, Mark. He had to just shove that in there.
Stick that in there
with that moron caller or that moron person that wrote in the email.
I wonder if we'll hear from him now that the Super Bowl's over, Chris.
Yeah.
And Mahomes didn't win.
Yeah, what was his name? Paul?
Oh, yeah. Paul.
Yeah, we didn't hear that.
Paul, why don't you call in? Forget writing it. Why don't you call in now that Mahomes didn't win? And let's have the conversation that you wanted to have 2 weeks ago through paper and pencil, right? Don't even use paper and pencil anymore. I don't know.
Got a lot of problems, kid. But you know what? But it all comes back to it. So when you're looking at Brady versus Mahomes, and that's what everybody was, all this. So you heard from Tom Brady as to why. And you and I have been saying that all along as to what makes him better Monday through Saturday. Can we now stop? I mean, can we now stop the nonsense about who's the GOAT? Mahomes is catching Brady. Because we said it last week. What happens if they lose?
Well, they lost.
And so now where are we?
So now where are we? So you got to pump the brakes, I think, Chris. Obviously, a little bit, right? You got to. You have to pump. Listen, and every Super Bowl Brady lost, he brought him back. He had the lead with, late in the game. Defense couldn't hold. Maybe he got the ball with 30, 40 seconds left, a minute left after the defense couldn't hold to try to do something, but it was like desperation mode. But he never, ever got his doors blown off like Kansas City did last Sunday,
right? And
like they did by Tampa. His 2 losses have been embarrassments. They've been total blowouts. He had no shot in either one of those games, Mahomes. Didn't know how to react and didn't know what to do. They can say, well, he didn't have the personnel to help him. What, do you think Brady had the greatest of teams?
No. And I'm hearing that, too, about how, Brady had much better receivers than Mahomes.
Come on.
Since when does David Givens and guys like that? I mean, Gronk was hurt a couple of those years. I mean, look.
You know what else goes up my behind this week, Chris, when they were saying, well, you could say the Patriots never played a team as good as this Eagles team. Are you kidding me? The Legion of Boom with Seattle, wasn't better. They didn't have a better defense.
Greatest show on turf. How about
the greatest show on turf?
And we slapped that team around physically all day. And how about those Baltimore teams that you had to beat? How about those Indianapolis teams with Peyton Manning? And let me say this, too, okay, about this Brady-Mahomes thing. Mahomes is not even, and this isn't, I don't even think Mahomes saying this stuff. This is not him saying it. It's everybody else. Because I don't think he would even put himself there.
No.
Look, he's not even close to Brady. I don't even think he's close to Manning.
Well, he might be close to Manning, Chris, but he's not. I don't think he's Montana.
I mean,
Joe, do you think he's Montana, Joe?
Hey, forget it. You're
I mean, we're talking about what are we talking about? About specifics when we call the GOAT. Like, he had an opportunity. It was 24-0 at halftime. Did anybody say, "Oh, if he comes back and blows the doors off him, maybe we can start talking about GOAT"? There's one other quarterback who did that,
right? Yeah.
So,
and you and I were saying that, Mark, at the half too. Yeah. That this should put it to rest unless he comes back in the second half. And people saying, well, this wasn't the same as Atlanta. Oh, no, yes, it was. I mean, that team was down just like the Patriots were down in the Atlanta game. And you said, well, the Patriots were moving the ball up and down the field on Atlanta. They just couldn't put it in, blah, 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 blah. The bottom line is Tom Brady picked that team up against Atlanta, and he carried them across the finish line. Mahomes sunk in that game. He sunk down and couldn't bring himself back. Look, Mark, it's from 2018 to 24, okay? This is Mahomes. Lost the conference championship to us in 18. Won the Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl, lost conference championship, won Super Bowl, lost Super Bowl. So, yeah, great. You've been to, what,
he's
5
there.
of them?
Every year he's there. He's there every year. Can I say something which I know people are probably going to get mad at?
Yeah.
So he's won 2 of his 3 Super Bowl wins have come against the biggest choker in one of the biggest chokers, one of the biggest in the history of football, which is Kyle Shanahan, because he hasn't proven he can win anything. He was the OC who made some of those real questionable calls for Atlanta. The year we came back against Atlanta. He helped us in that game, Shanahan, by making some of the calls he did instead of wasting clock. Okay, so Shanahan's one of the biggest choke artists going. So when I say, Mahomes won, listen, Shanahan wet himself more than Mahomes putting up stats and winning those games. Because I still say if Greenlaw doesn't have a freak Achilles injury last year, just going onto the field, that game, they lose the game, Chris. The middle of the field was shut down. San Fran beats them last year. Without question, San Fran wins that game.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying the Patriots played the best of opponents every single year in the Super Bowl. In the nine they went to and won 6. You got a long way to go, Kansas City. But to talk about the Patriots.
Chris, let me tell you something. Some of those Baltimore defenses that Brady had to play against with Reed and Suggs
and Lewis
and Ray Lewis and the rest of those guys. Don't you tell me that those defenses weren't just as good as this Philly defense, if not better, that Mahomes just got dominated by. Those Baltimore defenses, Chris, they were animals out there. And Brady had to get by them to go to the Super Bowl.
Pittsburgh, too, with Porter and Polamalu and these guys. You know, once again, they're not close. And so when I look at this situation and say, the last thing I'll say on this is, okay, so you look at, New England versus Kansas City and all this other stuff. Look, the extended period of time, the length of time, the 20 years and all that. So, I mean, the story's not yet finished or written for Kansas City. So maybe at some point say, well, we can put it on hold right now. But for me, I told you last week, this does not change. Whether they won or lost this game was not going to change my opinion as to where they are compared to the Patriots. They're still not close. They weren't close coming into the game, and they weren't close coming out of the game. People say, well, they took a step back. I don't think they took a step back. I don't think they were ever there to begin with to take the step back.
They weren't there to begin with, Chris, but I do think
they could only have taken a step forward.
Yes, taking a step forward. I do think, Chris, that their invincibility has taken a shot, where I think teams now will say, well, listen, maybe this team isn't as invincible as we thought they were, because if you punch this team in the face, they don't punch back. Because I'm going to be honest with you, Chris, they kind of got punched in the face a little bit early in that Houston game, and they struggled. They got some favorable calls. Stroud had absolutely no pocket awareness. He wet himself. The coach wet themselves. But Houston, Chris, they could have very easily had won that game.
Had them in every statistical category.
Yes.
They had them beat. So, okay, we got to get to Catone's comments. But before we do that, where does Kansas City rank then in dynasties? You're talking San Fran, Pittsburgh. I don't know if you put Dallas in there, but New England. Where do they rank so far?
I have them behind, obviously, the Patriots are number 1. I'm still going to put San Fran 2 at this point. I'll put San Fran 2. And I'll say Kansas City. You know what, Chris? I'm going to put, at this point, they've only won 3. They haven't won 4 yet. Right. I'm going to put them behind Dallas.
So where's Pittsburgh rank then in 70s?
That's a different era, Chris. So I'll put them behind those teams because the 70s was a different era. But I'm talking post, like 1980. I'm talking, let's say from 1990 on, right? Yeah. You got Dallas. You got the Patriots. Well, San Fran was in the 80s, so I shouldn't say that, Chris. But they're in the 80s. But Pittsburgh 70s, I'll disqualify them. Patriots, San Fran, Dallas, and Kansas City. What do you think?
I got Patriots, San Fran, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, and then Dallas. That's what I got.
Yeah, I'm just disqualifying Pittsburgh because they were from the 70s. But yeah, very easily you could put them in there. What do you think, Joe?
I think between the two of you, I think Patriots, San Fran. I always forget about Pittsburgh because I always, because I'm an 80s person, I throw in Dallas usually, but I always forget about Pittsburgh. So I think Chris's version closes in on it best with Pittsburgh and then Dallas. Because I still don't put Kansas City up there yet, because they still have a ways to go. I think to fill in the gaps of all those other teams that we just mentioned.
A long way to go.
A long way to go.
And Mahomes has got a
Chris, I
to
think
get to Brady.
Kelsey. Can I ask you? Everyone has been talking about, Brady and Mahomes. What about Gronk and Kelsey? Real quick before we end this segment.
That's not close. Well, first of all, it's different. It's different types of players, but no, I don't put Kelsey in the same class as Gronk. I don't. I mean, he's not far, but he's up there. He's in the top 3.
He's almost, Chris, to me, like an H-back type of receiver. Like he's not a traditional tight end in the way where he can block, he can run route. Like he couldn't do it. He wasn't a complete tight end like Gronk. He couldn't do the things Gronk did. You saw him flailing out there trying to chip somebody over the weekend.
That was funny.
Last weekend. That was funny.
He doesn't stem. He doesn't stem routes like Gronk either.
No.
In my opinion.
He finds open space, Chris.
Gronk was a specimen. Gronk was just a different.
As a specimen, is right.
I mean, Gronk. Go back and watch. You know what? People, it's revisionist. Go back and watch Gronk. Just go watch some of those.
He was younger
games.
too, Chris. He was running over guys.
Right, and his route running wasn't bad either.
Imagine if he wasn't hurt half the time too. That's the thing. You know what I mean? He's got so much stats and obviously a Hall of Famer, but the fact that his back was hurt all the time and he had like 7 guys trying to tackle him every game, every catch, it's amazing. You go, wow, this if he wasn't, it would be his stats be even better.
And his catch radius.
Oh, his hands.
I mean, he would take passes off his shoelaces to and make those catches. I thought he stemmed routes better. I thought he leaned in on corner routes so much better than Kelsey does. I mean, you watch Kelsey run around. He doesn't really run routes. He drifts around on the field.
Yeah.
Brady would not allow you not to run routes. So look at it that way. You knew Gronk ran good routes. Why? Because look at who the hell was controlling the practices.
Yeah. No,
Another
you're right.
reason why that's the GOAT. Right?
Yeah. You're right.
Want to get to Catone's comments now? What do you think?
We might as well. You keep holding me off over here.
Right. Weekly Rewind was presented by Corso Law Group, corsolawgroup.com. He's waiting. He's chomping at the bit. Catone's comments is next.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to CORSOLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help.
Time for Catone's comments!
I muted him.
Huh? Yeah, you got to get him off mute.
What? You know what you do? Want to play games with me? Crying out loud. Right? So I'm back. Listen, so now Super Bowl just ends, obviously, this week. And this is something that we're going to revisit over the, when things get slow in the summer and, middle of the dog days of summer before training camp opens. We're going to revisit this because the three of us are going to have a lively debate about this. But I thought it fit this time period right now because the Super Bowl just ended. I was thinking this weekend after the game on Sunday night, Monday, I was thinking, my God, that game was pretty bad. Like they dominated them. That wasn't even a good game. Like it was a good game in the sense Kansas City lost as a Patriot fan, but it really wasn't even a good Super Bowl. It wasn't a good game. They dominated them. That score could have been like, 50-6. If they 50 to, you know what I mean? That game was a total annihilation game. So I started thinking, well, what are the worst Super Bowls that I've seen? Now, when I say worst Super Bowls, it could be because it was just a total blowout or it was just an absolute boring game, horrible game to watch. So I categorize it as both. Either a blowout or just a bore to watch. Who wants to watch this game? It's terrible, right? So when I say bad, that's what I mean by that. Now, obviously, I can't go back to the 70s. I'm not going to go all the way back to the 70s, but I'll say post-1980. What were the worst that I can remember? And I'm just going to touch on some of them. But this is something we're going to do in detail in the dog days of summer, because I think this will be fun to go through, Chris. I think the worst Super Bowl that I've seen, just because to me, it was a preseason game. It was actually it was like a preseason game. That's how bad the quality of play was.
Can I guess?
Go ahead, guess.
Oh, well, you said quality of play. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe not San Fran.
Was when
San Diego.
Pittsburgh. Nope, when Pittsburgh played Seattle, it was 21-10. It was like a preseason game. I think Roethlisberger might have threw for 160 yards, 180 yards, 2 interceptions, and they won the game. They won. It was a disgrace, an absolute disgrace of a game to win. So I'd say that's probably one of the worst Super Bowls I've seen.
Which one is it? Pittsburgh who?
Pittsburgh and Seattle.
Seattle, yeah, okay.
Chris, it was like a preseason game. Now, there's a bunch of these games, but the other one, there's a few more I want to highlight. The Cowboys and the Bills. It was 52-17. You knew before the game started it was going to be a blowout. Dallas was that dominant that year. You knew before the game even started, we'll tune in. I turned it off at halftime. I don't think I watched the second half. Buffalo didn't even belong on the same field. And you knew it before the game started. Vegas should have put the line at 30, and they still would have covered, which they did. Other game that was horrible to watch was the Ravens and the Giants. The Ravens won that game 34-7. The Ravens could have put up 50 that day if they wanted to. They started running the ball. They got real conservative. That was one of the best top 5 defenses in the history of football that year for the Ravens. There was no way that Giants team was going with Kerry Collins as quarterback. There was no way that team was going to beat that Ravens team. I hate to do this to us as Patriot fans, but the Bears and the Patriots, that was but
was that 46-10? Was that the final now?
46-10. That was utter domination. I mean, that was just a bad game to watch.
It was good for the first. It was good for like the first 10 minutes, if that. When we took a 3-0 lead. Yeah. And then it all went to shit.
That's what I was going to say. We took the 3-0 lead, and that was the end of that. A couple other games, Chris. The 49ers in Denver, 55-10. The 49ers, that was such a bad game. It was a blowout. It was a horrible game to watch. Halftime, turn it off. San Diego.
That should have been Cleveland in that game.
Should have been Cleveland. San Diego. Young throws 6 touchdown passes. Halftime.
49-26, that was.
Halftime, turn it off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's the game. Mark, that's the game, not to interrupt, but that's the game where Jerry Rice was all pissed off at Deion Sanders because Deion at that point was playing for San Fran. He was pissed off at Deion because Deion was screwing off the whole week of the Super Bowl. And I think back then I think that's when they went away from the 2 weeks and it was just one. I don't know.
It was just 1 week. It might have been.
And he was screwing off every night and all that. And Jerry Rice was like, hey, you got to, you hear Deion tell it. It's hilarious. He's like, hey, you got to focus in, dial in. He's like, man, I'm going to kill this team. He said, we're going to kill this team. Don't worry about it, Jerry. Don't worry. We're going to kill this team.
And they did. They knew it. Like you knew. That was another one of those games, Chris. You knew before the game that San Diego didn't belong on the same field.
Yeah.
That game was going to be a blowout. And it was a blowout. Seattle against Denver.
Yeah.
The first Legion of Boom Super Bowl before we beat them. That was a disgrace. I mean, to me,
we should have been in that game
because Manning got his head punched in. We should have been in that game. But bad games though, Chris. Like games you turn off at halftime.
How about Oakland, Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I have that down. I have that down. Oakland and Tampa Bay. That was the Gruden Bowl where Tampa Bay knew what he was running before the play was even called just by the formation. Right? It was bad. With Gannon was the quarterback for the Raiders.
Yeah, it was terrible.
That was terrible. That was a terrible game. And then, Chris, how about just to watch the game aesthetically? It was miserable to watch. I thought it was a terrible game.
Oh, you're gonna say Chicago and Indy, huh?
Chicago and Indy. Wasn't that a
05.
terrible game to watch?
Oh, in the rain.
Oh, it was I mean, the best part of that Super Bowl, Joe, was Prince. Was
That was
the halftime
one
show.
of the best halftime
That
shows
was
I've
one of
seen.
the best halftime shows ever. It's raining out, and he starts singing Purple Rain, right? What was better? That was fantastic, right?
Yeah, and you know, that was that year that New England had the flu ran through the team, and
we blew the lead, and we blew that big lead because we would have destroyed Chicago too.
That would have been a three-peat.
That would have been a three-peat. Yep, that would have been a three-peat. What are you gonna do? And just more
And
recent,
this one
Chris,
too.
This Super Bowl is one of them. Technically, halftime. I mean, we just hate Kansas City. But if you were somebody who's a fan of another team at halftime and you didn't care about Mahomes like we do because of where we live, you very easily could have turned this game off at halftime. It was a joke. And even the first Kansas City Super Bowl they lost, Chris, to Tampa, that game wasn't competitive either. At halftime, you knew that game was over. There was no way Mahomes was coming back against Brady. Turn the goddamn TV off. That game was over. Totally over. And then the other one, Chris, I'll mention, it's the Doug Williams Super Bowl for Washington. They fall behind 10-0. He scores 35 points in the second half quarter.
Right. Yeah, that was another one. That's
another.
Was that Riggins?
Riggins was against the Raiders. Riggins might have been in that game, but it was the game that Washington played the Raiders.
That was like late 80s, right?
Late 80s was Riggins.
Oh, no, the Riggins, but the Washington game was what, like 88, something like that, in that range?
Something like that, yeah.
The Doug Williams game?
The Doug Williams game, yeah. But anyways, so those are just some games, Chris, but I think we really, in the summer, should go through the worst Super Bowls in detail and rank them where we think they are in history. The history
That's
of
a good
the worst
idea.
Super Bowls.
Joe, I like that idea. You?
The three of us can rank them, go through them, explain why, But I had to do it today quickly just because of the time of the year it was. It's Super Bowl time. You know what? Let's do it. And so I just wrote some down quick, but I didn't rank them. But, but I think in the summertime we should do that, Chris.
Yeah, make sure you're out there and let us know. Go ahead.
You added a bonus track. A nice bonus track of within the last 30 years, best halftime show.
Oh, we could do that too.
So what did you think, Joe? You didn't watch the halftime show?
No, it was one of those ones I wasn't a fan, so I did a couple of chores.
I don't know who it was. I still don't know who it is.
No, I know who Kendrick
My
Lamar
son
is.
thinks
I know a couple of the songs. I mean, my kids would have known who it was probably. I mean, they're at college. I mean, but I did recognize a couple of songs, Chris, but I didn't know 95% of what he was singing. He brought a couple of people on stage. I had no idea who they were. No clue. Absolutely no clue.
The best part of that halftime show was Samuel L. Jackson. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was all right.
He was, dressed like Uncle Sam.
I'm not. Yeah, it was all right.
Well, the rest of it sucked so bad. You had to find something else. I thought Prince and Michael Jackson were the best halftime shows ever.
They were the two best halftime shows. Yep.
Katy Perry.
But listen, nothing's was like U2 because that's the first one we won.
Yeah, that was something else.
Did
you guys? Yeah, they had the list of all the people in 9/11.
Right? Yeah.
Any commercials stick out to you?
Nah.
No, nothing.
I don't know if there was. What do you have any?
I like the one. I like the Martha Stewart one with the Skechers when she gets in the Skechers and she's flipping all around and all that stuff. That was okay.
That was all right.
Then they had the Dunkin' Donuts one with Belichick and Affleck and all that.
Belichick and Affleck. That was good. You know which one I thought was funny to spoof because I'm an old man and I remember the movie. They put Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan back.
Oh yeah, Sleepless in Seattle.
When Harry met Sally.
Sally.
I
don't
know. What the hell is wrong with you? Sleepless in Seattle.
Okay. But you know what the best one was though, Joe, is the guy kept getting distracted from caveman all the way up to now, where something big is going to happen in the game and somebody distracts him and he misses it. Yeah. And then it gets to the point where he could like rewind it now. You know what they were showing the other day, Chris? YouTube, I think it was.
They were showing on NFL Network some of the best Super Bowl commercials. Remember the commercial when the Gronk is like pretending like he gets out of bed and the snow's coming through the window, and he says, "Snow day, boys," and he goes and rounds up. They round up all these players to go play in the snow. That was cool.
Yeah. That was a good one too. So good stuff. I mean,
that's an old one, but
Mark, I like your idea. I think Joe likes the idea too. So we're going to do that. So stay tuned. And by the way, I want to hear from you in Heated Hotline and in our mailbag as to what you think the best and worst Super Bowls were. So make sure you're letting us know. But Catone's Comments was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Come tomorrow. We'll talk about the Super Bowl some more, talk about the Patriots, and some of the free agents and trades we think they should make. So make sure you stick around to that. But when we come back, we're going to talk B's and C's. Stick around.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal New England Field. By the way, I called 38-24 in this game, and that's the same point total. That's the point total. It was 40-22,
but same point total.
And you had it close too. You were right there too.
I did. I was in the 30s for the Eagles, but no, you hit it right on the number.
So I don't know why people just aren't listening anymore.
You noticed that when I went through that list, Chris, as worst Super Bowls, for me, the worst Super Bowl I want is not mentionable.
Oh, no.
It's not mentionable.
No, because then you're going to blame me again. Don't talk about us.
No, I didn't mention you. Listen, I kept it off the list.
Let's talk B's and C's. Joe.
Hit it! The Boston Celtics are the world champions, and they have shown the world how great a ball club they really are.
Okay, Mark. So let's start with the Bruins. I mean, Bruins go to this break where they're playing in the nation's face-off is happening now. Yep. I want to talk more about that than them. They're in 10th place, 60 points.
Are you surprised that they're in 10th place?
No, they really this team. They're really not a good team, and I don't know what the hell to do.
I was going to say, so what do you do? The trade deadline is when, Chris? In
March 7th.
March 7th. What do they do? Are they even able to do a fire sale? I don't even know.
I don't know what you can do because so many guys have. I mean, everybody keeps talking about Marchand trading him. What are you going to get?
What's he going to get you? I was going to say, what's he going to get you?
I mean, it's a mess right now. It's definitely a mess with this team as to how to break this thing down to build it up again. It's like they can't even break it down to build it up in that situation. But tell me what you think about this, the nations face off, where you got Canada, Finland, Sweden, and the United States playing in this little tournament. And one of them's some game's going to be in Boston, right? I think on Monday. So,
I like it, Chris. I think it's a cool idea during the All-Star break. I think it's a cool idea. Marchand scored a goal
for Canada. Got cheered, all kinds of cheers.
Right. All of a sudden, he decides he's going to show up.
Right.
What's that about?
You think that could propel him into the second half of the season with us?
I don't know. Man, who the heck knows? I don't know. I think it's cool though, Chris, what they're doing. I mean, it generates some excitement. You know what I mean? I would rather see something like that than that in-season tournament for basketball, or this ridiculous all-star game that they have where nobody plays defense. They're just running up and down the court taking shots. I mean, have the United States play the world, like best out of 3 over a weekend in Vegas. Maybe you do a Christmas time. You take a 10-day break during the middle of the season and put the world's best on the court and play the United States all-star team, an all-star team for the United States, like an Olympic team, and play best of 3 in Vegas. That would be better than an in-season tournament nonsense.
Yeah, I like it too, except I want to keep it just to the NBA. So like NBA play, like the NHL
No,
is
it would
doing this
have
with
to be
just
no,
NHL players.
No,
that
it would
play
just be the world's best NBA players because a lot of these NBA players like
Are from
Doncic and
different-
Jokic, Doncic, Jokic, all these guys are from different places. This guy, the center from San Antonio, is from France. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Those guys would be on one team, and you play the United States' best.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun, and I like this too. You're right, I like it too.
Giannis would be on the world team. They'd have a heck of a team.
They would, or you could even do what the NHL's doing and break it up by countries.
You could break it up by
you
countries.
take the countries that have the most team players in the NBA, and you pick those to play against the United States, and so on. But I think it would be good. And as far as but coming out of the second half with the Bruins, buckle up because
they're not
it's gonna
going
be the same
anyway,
kind of-
Chris. If they sneak into the playoffs, they're going to get blown out in the opening round.
Yeah, it's a dead season. It's tough, and the worst part about it is we don't know what the hell to do to fix it, and that's the most, because if they miss the playoffs, that's when you see GMs get fired. When the Bruins miss the playoffs, that's when those things happen. So
that's when
they
things
do
happen,
for that. And as far as the Celtics go, now what are they? 39-16 at the break. They're what, about 4 or 5 games back of Cleveland.
Does it even matter? Do they care if that they're behind Cleveland?
Well, that's the question I was going to ask you. Do I no, I don't think they care because that's the way they're playing. But you know what I mean? They're playing like they don't care. Because I looking at last year's playoffs, I don't think home court really, I don't think it makes a hell of a difference at all. Do you?
No. Nope. Not
I mean, they have a nice home court advantage with
Chris,
the crowd,
they have the best road record and they have the best road record in the NBA, the Celtics.
They do. And so, and in the playoffs last year, there were a lot of road victories for these teams all across the NBA. Do you think, but just for argument's sake, do you think they can catch Cleveland? Or you think that, I know they can. You think they will?
If they wanted to, yes. I don't think they care about that. I think they want to play good, consistent basketball. Here's going to be the difference, Chris. When they get to the playoffs, as they get closer to April, late March, April, and they're getting ready for the playoffs start in April, can they lift up their defensive intensity and start to play defense? Because when they play defense, I don't think they can be beat, Chris. They just turn it on when they want to play defense or not. It's not consistent. But if they say, okay, it's playoff time, boys, we're going to be consistent now with the defense. And if you listen to Porzingis' comments last night, he kind of hinted to that, right?
Flipping the defensive switch. See, everyone keeps talking about the three-pointers, and rightfully so, the math, Missoula and the math. But this team's going to go as the defense goes. I mean, that's the one thing people, I mean, you got people saying it, man. What's his name? Mannix or guys like that talking about the because it's the truth, Forsberg. When this defense is purring, like Mark said, when they're fighting over screens, instead of under, and they're not lazy like that. When they're getting out and blitzing three-pointers, and their big men are doing that, three-point attempts. And when, they're playing, they're picking up guys at half court, Mark. When they're doing that stuff, they're almost impossible to beat. Can they flip the switch is the question that's going to be in the second half. And can they stay healthy?
Well, that's the other big piece because they have no depth, Chris, in the post. So it's going to be really important they keep Porzingis healthy because, yes, I know they still got Horford, but Horford, Chris, he's older, right? Horford will give them some minutes in the playoffs. He might even make some big shots in the playoffs for them, but you can't count on him to be a starter. Porzingis has to be healthy because they have no other depth, Chris. So the health is an real important piece in addition to defense.
It is, and we'll see what happens coming out of the break and see if they can flip that switch. But Corso and Catone was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Hey, tomorrow, come back, tune in. We're going to have more breakdown of this Super Bowl, a little more detail on it, talk Patriots, talk free agents, talk maybe a little draft too. I'm hearing some things about T. Higgins, so stick around for that. And come back next week to our show, this show. We're going to talk Celtics, Bruins, Catone's comments, so much more. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Now find Corso and Catone on AM 790, The Score, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you podcast. or subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch the chaos every Saturday at noon.